Miami's regular season is over and it ends in a bizarre game winner. We'll break it down before looking ahead to their play-in matchup versus the Bulls and just how far this team can go on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. For daily content on the Heat, click that subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you're following us on your favorite podcast app. New episodes 5 days a week, including in the off-season, so you're going to want to keep up. Your favorite podcast now is a newsletter introducing the Locked On Heat daily newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Heat newsletter. And stay tuned for later in the show when we announce how you could win up to $2,500 in awards. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Have a jam-packed show for you today. We're going to break down all the Heat's draft pick scenarios, discuss whether or not they can make it out of the play-in. Maybe they can make some noise in the playoffs. The Cavs even want to see us. But first, recording this on Monday morning, the Wizards beat the Heat on a Bub Carrington buzzer beater on Sunday afternoon, final day of the regular season. The Heat were up 4 with 9 seconds left. They gave up an open 3. Josh Christopher inexplicably turns it over with a backcourt violation. Then Carrington makes this ridiculously tough fadeaway jumper at the buzzer, and the Wizards players dogpile him right below the basket. The Heat trudge off the court, having lost their final game of the regular season in another disappointing way, another blown fourth quarter lead, another game lost in the final minutes, another double-digit lead lost. It hit all the classic check marks of the 2024-25 season. The Heat are going to play Chicago on Wednesday for a chance to make the playoffs. We're going to get into what's ahead in the play-in tournament in a second. But first, David, is this the funniest way for this regular season to end for Miami?
Kind of feels that way, doesn't it? Like it's just such a perfect microcosm of the season, trying to scrap together a win that doesn't mean anything with a bunch of bench players, and then to somehow still follow suit and follow the same unfortunate patterns of the whole season. So I don't know if it's funny. It maybe sad might be the better adjective to describe it, because it certainly was a pretty tough loss for those guys. Obviously the game doesn't necessarily mean anything in and of itself, but you don't want to blow a lead. You don't want to have a crucial turnover, and you don't want to give up a game-winning bucket. And so for all those things to happen yet again in a game like this, it stinks. It does really stink. I don't know. Funny, again, I don't think that's the right word, but it is just predictable also, and unfortunate.
Cool moment for Bub Carrington. Not going to take that away from him. A little bit of a lucky shot, but he's a tough shot maker. We did the scouting report. We did our blue notebook on him, and one of the things I liked about him is like that dude's got length. He could shoot it over guys, and he hits tough shots, and it was a really cool moment for him. He's been dealing with a lot of stuff this season, and he's been a nice little silver lining for the Wizards, but it was just the perfect way for this Heat season to end. And just being in the arena after the game, it wasn't even disappointment. It was just sort of a shrug your shoulders, sigh, and just, of course. The thing that it's not even the jumper. Like, again, credit to Bub Carrington. That's a tough shot. He hit it at the buzzer. Good for him. And by the way, I misspoke earlier. They did not blow a double-digit lead in this game, but they did hit all the other check marks. But the thing that really stuck out in this, Miami's defense was really bad. Giving up that wide open 3 that with, again, up 4 with 9 seconds left, they give up a wide open 3, and then there was like 8 seconds left. No time came off the clock. It was just right away. And then Josh Christopher just stepping on the line at half court. It was just a wild turnover, and that's really what set up the game winner there. But I guess maybe the bigger takeaway from the game itself, before we get into some of the standings and playoff stuff here, Jaime Jaquez Jr., career high, 41 points in the game. Really cool to watch him. I tweeted it during the game, David. I was like, I feel like I'm watching Jaime Jaquez Jr. for the first time. And does it mean anything? Or is this just did he just pull out the classic Victor Oladipo 40 points in the regular season finale, and it turns out that it doesn't really matter?
Kind of feels more like the latter. We've always known that Jaime is somewhere in this really nebulous phase where he's not good enough to be a consistent role player or a consistent part of your rotation because there are problems on defense. The offense isn't always there. And yet we've seen him have these moments, not quite obviously because it's a career high, but he was electric in summer league and there was high expectations and those fell flat during the course of the season. And so you see him perform the way he does. And it's like kind of a reminder, oh yeah, he can do these things. He is capable of them. It's just inexplicable why he hasn't been able to do them much more consistently or regularly. And I don't think it has anything to do with how far he's fallen in the rotation, because if he was playing at this level or close to it or even more consistent, he'd be getting those minutes and he'd be getting the opportunity. I know players need a rhythm. They need to have some kind of understanding of where they're going to be in the rotation, but most of that falls on him because when he's had opportunities, he hasn't been able to make the most of it. So it really is just like that Oladipo 50-point game where you kind of just let it all hang and say, you know what? I got nothing to lose. What they're going to do? Bench me? Like the play-in tournament's going to start, and if I probably won't get any minutes during that game. And that being the case, this might be my last opportunity, perhaps even my last opportunity in a Heat jersey to really showcase what I have. Yeah. And if that's the case, why not let it fly?
It's similar to Oladipo, where Oladipo wasn't playing with any of the core guys. No Tyler Hero. Bam Adebayo was also just taking the day off in this game. So without those guys on the court, it was basically just hand the ball to Jaime and let him go to work. That's a much easier spot for NBA players to be in. Or guys like Jaime, where, yeah, there's no pressure because the game doesn't mean anything. And you don't feel obligated to pass it to the better players because they're not playing. So it was, Jaime Jaquez Jr. is looking around and he's like, Keyshawn Johnson, Josh Christopher, like y'all were in the G League a week ago. Like I'm not passing to you, like it's I'm going to go to work. And then you look at who he's matched up against. He goes 3 for 6 against Bub Carrington, 5 for 8 against Tristan Vucevic, 3 or 4 against Kobe Jones, 7 of 8 against AJ Johnson, 5 of 5 against Justin Champagnie. All those names that I just listed are real NBA players. I didn't make them up. And I don't think most NBA fans would have known that those people existed going into this season. Now they've gotten a lot of minutes recently for Washington, but it's not like he's going up against Amen Thompson.
Right.
So it was a little bit of just kind of felt barbecue chicken all night. And even Eric Spoelstra after the game says, I don't think he meant to say it, but he kind of let it slip. He's like, I don't know that he does that against a good team.
Ooh.
Which like the Wizards can't even that's not even bulletin board material at this point. They're like, yeah, we know what we are. But it's true. He meant there was no rotating defenders. It was just Jaime Jaquez would get Carrington, Jaime Jaquez would get Jones on the switch, and they would just guard him one-on-one, and Jaime would just put a shoulder into one of those skinny guys and then just score, and that was it. And he just did it over and over again. That's not happening. That's not happening in the play-in game.
No.
Right? Like the Bulls have better defenders. Like that's not. So it's not going to happen. So it's nice. I think what I like about it though, and while I'll say it is at least a little bit of something, is that you can feel good about this, man. And there's something to be said about finding who you are again. And it's like Rory McIlroy in the Masters in the final round. Like he shot such a great first 9, and he was just like, oh yeah, that's right, I could do this. Even at Augusta, I could do this. And then he kind of slumped a little bit and then came back at the end. But he comes back at the end maybe in part because he realizes, oh, I can do this. And for Jaime, the sophomore slump, I think, has just been such a weight on his shoulders. So to kind of end it with some sort of exclamation point here and punctuate your season like this, maybe that carries over into next season a little bit, where he's like, you know what, I can do this stuff. And I feel a little bit better about how last year ended. But last word on Jaime, and then we'll get into the standings.
Yeah, I don't know how much of it translates. Again, just looking at the kind of inferior players and everything else like that, like I don't think he ever lacked the confidence or the ability to put up big numbers against bad opponents. It's just whether or not he can do it against better teams and when he's seeing actual NBA level defenses as opposed to whatever the Wizards trotted out on the floor on Sunday. So, it doesn't. Look, we saw Oladipo put up even a bigger game against the Orlando Magic, and that was when the Magic were rebuilding and struggling and everything else like that. And Oladipo just got his number called against the team that drafted him, and maybe he had a little extra incentive there in that case. But at the same time, that didn't translate into anything consistent, or you couldn't look at it. It just gave fans fodder to be like, he put up 50 points. He was the secret weapon all along.
It was
Is
40
anybody
points.
looking 50? It was 50. I think it was 50-point outing. I think
40.
it was 50.
I just looked it up.
All right. I believe you. Anyway, 40
Same
point.
thing.
Yeah, you're right. 50. No, it's not. No, it's not. 50 point. You're right. Is a little bit more significant. But at the same time, like it didn't mean anything. Is anybody looking at Jaime's performance
But
and
it,
being like,
it didn't
okay,
mean anything for Oladipo because he just kept getting hurt. We're not worried about Jaime's injury history the way that we worried about Oladipo's injury history.
but do you come away with this thinking that Jaime not necessarily duplicate that level, but can like put up significant and big numbers against quality teams?
No, not right now. But I come away with this doesn't change the way I've thought about Jaime. But I also have never overreacted to Jaime's season. What I think he needs to figure out is how does he pick his spots? How does he stay aggressive? It's really easy to pick your spots when all the spots are yours.
Yeah.
And that was the case against Washington. I do think that this Heat coaching staff is a little concerned about how does he make an impact when the ball isn't in his hands. I mean, even think about his rookie year. His best games happened when Jimmy Butler was out, and he just had to do a Jimmy Butler impression. The Christmas against Philadelphia, you know? But that's where I think the coaching staff is a little concerned, where I think even they'll say, this is cool, the 41 points is good. In terms of what this means materially to what this means to winning basketball, not much of anything. But for him, I just think it's mental. It's, hey, like, I just got to shot myself. He was also in a shooting slump for a lot of the year. Like, even when he did take shots, he wasn't necessarily making them at a high enough rate. Right. So, you know, maybe this is just a little bit of a step in the right direction, but I do think that there's a lot more steps that he needs to take to get to where everybody thought that maybe he should be. But development's not linear. And I think a tough season like this after a pretty sensational rookie year could be the best thing for him long term in terms of just, hey, I got to get in the lab. I'm not even close to where I need to be. Coming up, can the Heat make the playoffs? And if they do, what do we think about the matchup with the Cavs potentially? We'll tell you why history is not on the Heat side in this play-in tournament next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Basketball and hockey playoffs are heating up, and there's no better place to place your sports knowledge to make most of it into real rewards than with Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. With Prize Picks, you simply pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and you're in. You can even combine players across sports, basketball, hockey, baseball, and more for your chance to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Maybe you want to say, you know what, Luka's having a great season with the Lakers. Maybe he'll go for more than 28 points. Maybe Jason Tatum might go for more than 8 rebounds. Or you could say Connor McDavid might go for more than 1 goal in a hockey game. Well, that's why it's so much to love and how easy it is to set your lineup, and you can do it in under 60 seconds. Prize Picks even turns cool promos like Taco Tuesdays, where they discount player projections up to 25% more to even more value, and payouts are fast, safe, and secure. So download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Today's episode is also brought to you by Wayfair. Spring is here, and that means it's home project season. Whether you're refreshing a room or tackling a full renovation, Wayfair is the best kept secret for all things home improvement, from small updates like stylish cabinets or hardware to major upgrades like new vanities, sinks, or outdoor lighting. Wayfair has quality products for every budget. Listen, you can use it to update your kitchen space or your living room, maybe another room in the house that you want to get update. The selection that you'll find is incredible. Their free and fast shipping make it so easy. No hauling heavy items from the store, and you'll find all the top brands there, from GE to Moen, all at great prices. Shopping is seamless, and you'll find exactly what you need to fit your space and style. Wayfair makes home improvement easy. Get started now at wayfair.com. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. The best way to support the show, like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. All right, let's look ahead to the play-in tournament and the playoffs here. So the Heat will be facing the Bulls in the 9-10 matchup in Chicago on Wednesday night. If they win, they will play the loser of Magic Hawks on Friday night. And if they win that, they'll make the playoffs. If they lose to the Bulls on Wednesday night, then they'll be out of the playoffs and the offseason will begin. And then we'll start our offseason content and start researching our blue notebooks, David. So that's where we are. Now, I mentioned the draft picks. There's 2 picks now that the Heat have to be eyeing, at least in consideration here. So basically, the Heat will keep their pick unless they make the playoffs. So they've got to win back-to-back games in Chicago Friday or Wednesday, and then on Friday against either the Magic or the Hawks in Orlando or Atlanta, depending on who loses that 7-8 matchup on Tuesday night. And if they win those back-to-back games on the road, they make the playoffs, and then they won't have their pick this year, but they'll have their pick next year. So that's where we are, or at least to be top 10 protected next year again. So that's where we are there. If they miss the playoffs, then they'll keep their pick this year. That's it. So, and right now it's 11th in the lottery, which doesn't have great odds to move up, but it's like a 2% chance of the number 1 pick and like a 4% chance of moving into the top 4. So that exists. And then there's the Warriors pick. So the Warriors, they lost to the Clippers on Sunday. So they're going to be in the play-in tournament. They in the 7-8 matchup against the Grizzlies. So they're going to host the Grizzlies. I think the Warriors probably win that game just because the Grizzlies are on a tailspin here and they're playing it in San Francisco. So if the Warriors win, the Heat will keep the pick. They'll keep their pick. The only way that the Heat are not going to get the Warriors pick, which is it's top 10 protected coming over from the Jimmy trade, is if the Warriors lose against Memphis and then lose on Friday against the loser of Kings Mavericks, which again, I just have a really hard time seeing the Warriors losing both of these games. But if they lose both of those games, that pick, which will be somewhere between 18, 19, and 20, they're going to do a coin flip probably this week at some point to determine which one it's going to be. It'll go right to 14 if they miss the playoffs, right? So it just kind of goes from there straight to the last pick of the lottery. So the Heat will still keep the pick unless, against all odds, that pick shoots into the top 4 in the lottery. And then at that point, the Warriors will keep their top 4 pick. So chances are the Heat are definitely going to have the Warriors pick, right? I would say like 99% chance the Heat end up with the Warriors pick. And then we'll see how the play-in tournament and the playoffs work. So that's where that is. David, a little bit of play-in history here, though, because in order for the Heat to make the playoffs, they would have to do something that no team has ever done, which is go from the 10 seed in the play-in tournament to the playoffs. Now, granted, the play-in tournament has not been around that long, so we're not talking about a huge sample size here, but it's still, proven to be pretty difficult. The Heat's own play-in history in 2023, they were the 7th seed, lost to the Hawks, beat the Bulls in the second play-in game. They advance to the playoffs. We know the rest. They make it all the way to the finals. In 2024, last year, they lose to Philadelphia. That was the game Jimmy Butler injures his knee. Kelly Oubre lands on it. But then they blow out the Bulls in the second play-in game. I don't know if people remember. That was a 24-point near triple-double by Tyler Hero. And then Jaime Jaquez was the big guy who stepped up in Jimmy Butler's place. He had 21 points against the Bulls in that game. He'd advance, lose to the Celtics in 5 games. And then this year, they'll be the 10th seed against the Bulls. So whereas before the Heat had 2 chances to win 1 game and needed it both times because they lost the first play-in game both times, they do not have that luxury if they want to make the playoffs this year, David. They can't afford to lose the first play-in game and win the second, because if they lose the first play-in game, their season's over.
Yeah, and this doesn't feel like the previous Bulls teams. They're playing better. We saw them recently against Miami, and kind of a must-win game for both teams to try to determine some standings issues there. And I don't know. It's much more of a challenge. It feels much more daunting. It's one thing to say, yeah, you know what? We've got 2 games. We can at least win one of them. You have to win both of them. And this team just has not been able to respond to that kind of pressure at all this season. They just, any must-win situation or any game where they had to find a way to step up, like there hasn't been much at stake. So maybe you can't really hold that, or there hasn't been enough of a sample size to kind of determine that. But it just doesn't feel like this team has been capable of rising to the challenge regularly. And this is a challenge to win both those games on the road against teams that want to advance in the playoffs. Chicago certainly wants to make it. Orlando certainly wants to make it. I think Atlanta would like something to prove, although maybe they have a little bit less to prove than the other teams just because they've tasted playoff success before. So I don't know what Miami's goals are. I can't get a read on this team in terms of how much of a sense of urgency they're feeling going into the play-in tournament. Do they want to win both games and try to test their mettle against Cleveland? Because it kind of feels like their one foot is already in Cancun and one foot is still at the Kaseya Center, and they're not quite sure what to do because they keep hearing Eric Spoelstra say, no, where are you going? We don't burn boats here in Miami. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. So, I mean, what's your sense in terms of how Miami approaches these 2 games? Do they feel that sense of urgency I talked about?
I don't know, man. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
So first of all, they're 0-3 against Chicago this season.
Yeah.
But again, to go back to Rory McIlroy here, Masters is on my mind. So he, there's something to be said of, yeah, we're 0-3 against the Bulls, but at least we just lost to them. So we kind of maybe know what to do. And Spoelstra talked about this. He said the last loss we had against Chicago came down to transition points. They just way outscored us in the open court. And if we just cut down on their relief points and even that out a little bit, we win that game, which is true. And having that kind of fresh on your mind and knowing even from a muscle memory sense of, oh, when a basket is missed or made, we kind of have to run with these guys and just kind of, and being able to keep those. There's something to be said about that. Again, it's like Rory on 18. He flubs his second shot, goes right into the bunker. The second, and in the playoff, they replay 18. He hits the same shot from nearly the same spot on the fairway. It was a little bit of better lie. And he ends up getting it right on the green, and he just hits the perfect shot that he was trying to hit the first time. And he even said afterwards in the interview, he doesn't hit that shot in the playoff on that second shot from the fairway if he didn't just screw it up on the 18th at the end of regulation. So I wonder if there's a little bit of a Rory thing happening with Miami where it's like, yeah, we kind of screwed it up. We didn't have the right feel for it the last game, but going into this one, we kind of have a better sense of the pace of the game.
My question is, who starts off guarding Josh Giddey? Because he was the true difference maker. Like he was chasing rebounds, making plays to others, finding his scoring. And if I recall correctly, nobody was really, I know they sent multiple defenders at him at varying times during the game, but nobody was really able to keep pace with him because either he has that combination of speed or size that kind of throws everybody off. My feeling was that Davion Mitchell did the best job of trying to make things a little bit more difficult because of
he doesn't start.
Right.
And Highsmith did an okay job. Wiggins kind of got cooked in the first half by Giddey, and then they ended up moving Davion.
He's coming back from injury, though, so maybe, I don't know.
I think they just play it straight up. I think they go Wiggins, and then because the thing with Giddey is you're gonna let him shoot the perimeter shots. He has been making them lately, but you do have to let him shoot them. It's the backline defense. It's the rotations at the end of it. I think Bam and Ware have to be locked in a little bit more on Giddey's drives than they were, especially that, like you were talking about. He's kind of got off tempo. He's got his own rhythm to him, and it's really challenging. And I think after having just seen him, maybe they have a better feel for that going into this one. And then if he shoots like he does from the perimeter, again, not just against Miami, like he's been doing, I don't know, he might just be a good shooter now. I have no idea. But if he shoots like that, you almost just say, well, what are you going to do? But you can't let Kobe White go off. You can't let these other guys go off. And you got to limit the stuff in transition. That's what really killed him, especially with Giddey. So I don't know, because to your point, this team, every time they've been backed into a corner, they've just stayed in the corner.
Yeah.
It's
we feel kind of safe and cozy here or comfortable.
And even over the last couple of years, again, Jimmy Butler a part of the team and stuff, but it's like you would think, hey, you're in the play-in tournament. Or even at the end of those regular seasons, you would say, you got to win these games to avoid the play-in tournament. And they'd be like, no, we don't. And then they lose those games, and they end up back in the play-in tournament. And then they'd be, all right, well, you got to win this play-in tournament to be the higher seed, or else you end up playing the Celtics in the first round. They're like, nah, we don't care. We're going to lose the first one. It's not until they absolutely have to win to keep their season alive that they've done it. But this is a different team for a lot of different reasons. So I don't know. The other part of this, David, is, okay, do the Heat have the best player on the court against Chicago? I think they do. As good as Giddey's played, I would say they still have the best player on the court.
Tyler?
And Bam. I would probably take both of them over, either one.
Okay, that's fair.
Either or. I mean, we don't even have to debate it, but one of them is better than Giddey.
Yes, and at the same time, though, like you have to get a monster performance. Like it kind of falls to me. It feels
step up.
Yes, it feels like this is a great opportunity for Tyler to take his game to get even another level and say, you know what, I can be that 1A in these playoff type situations, and that's where he has to prove himself, because that hasn't been the case over the course of his career. He hasn't had to be that player. This season, he does.
Yeah, and Bam was bad against the Bulls, not just in the last game, but in the play-in game last year. I think he was like 1 of 10 or something like that from the field.
Vucevic matchup is difficult for him, so he's got to be able to find a way to respond.
Vucevic do well against Miami, whether they play for Chicago or Washington. It doesn't matter how they spell it, but if they pronounce it that way, it's tough. Against Atlanta, potentially, I think the Trae Young probably still the best player on the court, but Tyler Hero, we saw him out play him the other game. The Magic would be tough because Paolo Banchero, I think the Magic beat Atlanta, and I don't think we're even worrying about this, but Banchero is averaging 29 points per game over the last 15 games. He's been crazy for Orlando, but they do have their own struggles offensively. And if that game gets into the mud a little bit, maybe that helps Miami. I don't know. All right. So a bunch of guys got minutes in the Wizards game. Keyshawn Johnson, Josh Christopher. Did any of them actually factor into the Heat's plans next season? We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into player props. You can go from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways and stats to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. That's FanDuel.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Ariete Hospitality. Hey, Miami Heat fans, are you looking to elevate your game day experience? Check out two must-visit spots just steps away from the Kaseya Center in downtown Miami. First up, there's Brasserie Laurel, a culinary gem in the Miami World Center recommended by the Michelin Guide. Laurel offers an upscale French brasserie experience, blending old world charm with modern flair. Whether you're enjoying delicious bites or sipping craft cocktails, it's the perfect spot before or after the game. And don't miss their happy hour specials every day from 5 to 7 p.m. Those will be going on even when the Heat season won't. So that's something to take advantage of. You can also head over to El Vecino, a sophisticated cigar bar with a laid-back vibe. It's the ideal pre or post-game hangout, or even a place to watch the game itself. You can watch the NBA playoffs. Enjoy exceptional cocktails, bites, and a welcoming atmosphere for all, including non-smokers. They've got a happy hour daily from 4 to 7 p.m. And don't forget the Taurus in Coconut Grove, where we've had our watch parties in the past. This past weekend, a friend of mine went there because he had gone to the watch party. He loved it. He said the place was great. Everybody was vibing. It was such a good place to visit, and he really enjoys it. He's going to make it a part of his regular staples from now on. Both of these incredible, all three of these incredible venues are part of the Ariete Hospitality Group, known for elevating Miami's dining scene. So don't miss out on these game-changing spots. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. The playoff race is heating up as the Heat season winds down. Can they secure a playoff spot through the play-in tournament? Stay in the know with the Locked On Heat podcast newsletter and get a chance to win one of these amazing prizes by subscribing. For example, you can get a $2,500 Best Buy gift card to upgrade your Sports Cave setup, a $300 Game Time gift card, or a $200 Fanatics gift card. Sign up to the newsletter between April 7th and April 30th this year to be entered. Our Heat newsletter delivers real-time updates, expert analysis, and playoff insights tailored for you. Subscribe now for free to the Locked On Heat podcast newsletter and stay ahead of this as the season unfolds. Subscribe today. Click the link in the description to enter LockedOnDaily.com. David, let's whip through some of these listener questions. Esteban writes in, which one of the G League guys has a shot to make the team next season? So G League guys, I'm including the two-way guys, Isaiah Stevens, Josh Christopher, and Drew Smith. Doesn't really count, but he's on the two-way contract. And then Keyshawn Johnson, who's on the standard roster but spends a lot of time in the G League. So among those guys, who do you think has a shot to make the team next season?
My feeling is it's probably Keyshawn Johnson. I feel like he's that tweener. He was somebody they were looking at in the draft, and he really didn't get much of an opportunity. But the fact that they kind of made him, put him on the contract first, kind of speaks to how highly they value him. And while he hasn't been able to really pop, I think it's the potential that he brings, the athleticism, the attitude. We had him on the show, and he spoke about Heat culture and just the tenacity and everything else that he seems to just kind of embody that aligns so perfectly with what this team loves to identify with in terms of work ethic and everything else like that. So that's my feeling. Not to say that these other players don't, but I almost feel like Josh Christopher, he's a scorer basically, and as such, he just hasn't had an opportunity to really go off very consistently. He's trying to blend his game a little bit, find a way to fit into a more moldable player, but he kind of feels like he fits into that category if he doesn't do anything at an elite level. And if you can't bring that intensity consistently enough or show that you're elite at any one particular thing, it almost feels like you don't really have a place in the NBA. And I just don't know if he's going to get that opportunity with Miami. I would say he'd probably start off being in the G League again with Miami's system, but Kishad probably gets the opportunity to play with the big team.
Yeah, I like that Josh Christopher dove to the ground for a loose ball at the end of that game. It was a really big play. Dives to the ball, loose ground, gets a deflection. I think he got credited for a steal for it. It gets the outlet to Kashad Johnson. That's the game-tying layup with under a minute left. But then he commits the boneheaded turnover with the over and back, and it's just it's tough, man. And if he's not, they're trying to mold him into a 3-and-D kind of guy, like kind of what J.R. Smith was late in his career with Cleveland. And it's just such a hard thing to do when you haven't defended at that level in your career, and honestly, you're just not really getting the reps. And I just don't really see it from him. Kashad, the big thing from him, my question is, what does he do at an NBA level other than play really hard? Like, he's got NBA athleticism, but like, what is the utility of it? And he's not a great ball handler. He's a pretty good rebounder, but his rebounds just feel really loud. Like, he's got those big, like, jump up high and smash on the floor with both feet, kind of Hulk type rebounds, but he doesn't, the volume isn't really there. And he made a couple of threes against Washington, and I thought the 3-point stroke looked a lot better than it did in Summer League, but he also only shot 24% from three in the G League. So that's really when you kind of got to get to the Heat coaches and ask, okay, like, do you think that we're trending in the right direction with this? And if you can kind of be more of a 3-point shooter, if you could start hitting them from the corners a little bit, maybe there's a little bit of a Haywood Highsmith, Caleb Martin type of career arc for him. I think they really like Kashad's personality. He's a natural fit in the locker room. He's really well liked in the locker room. Everybody likes Josh Christopher that's around him too. So I'm not taking anything away from him. And then you go to Drew Smith. I think they really like him, but the injury history is what it is, and the age stuff is what it is, and the fact that they have Davion Mitchell on the roster he might have taken Drew's spot. Now, I think they've shown before that they love Drew Smith. I think they'll keep him in the program to some degree throughout the offseason and over the summer, but we'll see. And then with Isaiah Stevens, I think they were really interested in what he could do, but he's really small. Guys like that just don't necessarily pan out at the NBA level. It's few and far between. My sense, to answer the question, and by the way, Kashad Johnson's contract non-guaranteed for next year. So all of these guys could be swapped out.
Yep.
And that's at least a possibility. My sense is nobody is safe, and that they'll be looking at all these spots. Now, Kashad, he's really cheap, and if he's just the 15th guy on the roster, he might just be the safest. But you also have to see how this offseason plays out. If the Heat make some major trades or something like that, maybe his job's safer, maybe it's less safe. I don't know. Antonio writes in, if we end up advancing and playing Cleveland, I think Miami should start Wiggins on Donovan Mitchell, Davion Mitchell on Garland, and Tyler Hero on Strus. I don't have a problem with that, but I haven't gone into the numbers and looked at those matchups. But maybe Wiggins on Garland would be fine too, and you put the Mitchell on Mitchell stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds fun. It also feels like it's looking way too ahead, and at the same time, with teams the way they switch and everything else like that, I mean, everybody's going to have an opportunity. You just have to find a way. It's all about who limits Donovan Mitchell more than anybody else, and I don't know if it's Wiggins. I don't know if it's Mitchell. I think they'll both get those opportunities and try to keep him from putting up big numbers. I know his numbers are a little down, but you get the sense that he's going to have some big moments in the playoffs to kind of prove yet again that he's a gamer. He's had big moments in the playoffs in the past when he was with Utah. So I'm curious to see if Miami does advance, and let's get there first before we start looking ahead to matchups. Mm-hmm. But then, yes, once they get there, who tries to limit Mitchell is a huge question. I'm
more concerned about limiting Garland just because I think Donovan Mitchell is going to do Donovan Mitchell things. I don't care who you put on him. They don't have.
Can you let him go
enough to? You don't let him go necessarily. You still put a good defender on him. Like, don't put Tyler on him, but make sure that, like, when Garland is also going off, that's when Cleveland is just unstoppable. And so I would be like, whoever the best defender is on Garland, whether you think it's Wiggins or Davion or whoever, do that, and then just put the other best defender available on Donovan Mitchell.
I mean, we've seen them kind of lose it. They did this in Utah too. Like, Mitchell could go for like 50-something points or 40-something points.
Yeah, and still
lose. If nobody else steps up. So I mean, putting Tyler on him and letting him get cooked and just like, okay, match him bucket for bucket, do what you got to do, and don't worry about the defensive assignment as much. Then that might shut down everybody else to a certain degree.
Tyler on Donovan Mitchell, while I could respect it, that's a little too like who was it? Oh man, there's an NFL coach that got fired. This is like a 20-year-old reference, but that was just basically like, we're gonna let Peyton Manning beat us. And he tried to stop Edgerrin James, and Peyton Manning threw for like 6 touchdowns, and he was like, well, he beat you. Brian writes in, I know you guys aren't going to talk too much about these last two games, but can at least get a mention that even playing against end of benchers, Terry Rozier was still terrible. He was honestly one of the worst players on the court in the Wizards game. There's the mention. Adam writes in, tough way to lose, but assuming we don't make the playoffs and we don't get the top pick, do you see us moving that pick? David, I think moving that pick, regardless of where it falls, very likely scenario. We know Pat Riley's going to get aggressive this summer.
Absolutely. It's such a huge summer in terms of what they do with this team and this roster. If they have the opportunity to acquire a superstar, those picks don't mean anything other than just adding collateral. At the same time, I think they also have kind of lesser value in terms of rebuilding the roster. You want to use them more as collateral for another team that's looking to add some players to their roster. I'm looking at you, Phoenix. And then hopefully you can kind of continue to build with either your two-way guys or adding some more undrafted players, because the spots in which these picks are going to fall, you're probably not going to add the top tier talent that this team needs. And we've already talked about, do you want to add more mid-level players like Nikola Jovic, like Jaime Jaquez to a roster that already has too many mid-level players?
Funny enough, where Phoenix ended up picking 10, they owe their pick to Houston. They could get something really close to it at 11 if Miami's pick ends up where the odds say it'll end up. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app.